Hey everybody, welcome back to another midweek moment. So have you ever experienced a disappointment that has threatened to derail your dreams? Maybe some of you are there right now. Maybe it's some sort of illness that has happened to you, or maybe it's a relationship fail, or maybe it's another proverbial wrench that was thrown into the plans that you had. And it's hard when that happens not to get down on yourself. So last week my family was on vacation. We headed down to Florida for that dream trip to Disney. And you know what they say about Disney? It's the most magical place in the world. And so coming back, one of the most common questions that people have asked me is, so how was your trip? How was your vacation? And if I'm honest, there were times where it was disappointing. It wasn't necessarily the dream trip that it could have been. So I think about that first day at Disney. We were at Magic Kingdom, and we had done this trip in the fall because we thought maybe the lines will be less, maybe the weather will be a little bit cooler, but we showed up at Magic Kingdom and it is crowded and it is hot. And I can sense myself getting crabby during the day, and I can sense the same thing in the kids. And there was a moment where the thought entered my mind, and I paid how much for this? And there was disappointment. And I had to talk myself out of that disappointment. And then the next day, it was off to Universal Studios, to Harry Potter Wizarding World. The whole point of the trip, we've been saving for this, preparing for this for 2 years, and we were so excited. But then after the first ride, we got off and we went back to our locker, which they had given us 30 minutes to use, and it was 5 minutes over the limit, and we found out that they were charging us $3 a locker to get our stuff back. So frustrating. And that disappointment threatened to derail the dreams that we had. And there were other moments throughout the day where it started raining, and it's kind of difficult to do what you want to do when it's raining out. There were all these moments that threaten to derail the dreams that we have. And this is what life is like. It's not just about a dream vacation that we have. Sometimes it's a dream job that doesn't pan out the way that we expected it to, or maybe sometimes it's a dream season in athletics, and we had all these hopes and all of these dreams only to watch them be dashed by a devastating defeat. And sometimes it's that relationship with that person that's just dreamy to us, and we soon realize that that's not the reality. And so what do we do in these moments where we experience disappointment? I think about the story of Joseph in the book of Genesis. So here's a young man who has dreams. And they're not just his dreams, they're God's dreams for him. Dreams of having significant leadership and influence, to the point that while he's the pipsqueak, he's the little brother in the family, that his leadership will be recognized and respected by his older brothers. That's the dream that he has. But then what does he experience? Disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. Betrayal after betrayal. So first it's his brothers who rough him up and then sell him off as a slave. And then it's his boss's wife who accuses him of sexual assault. And then when he finds himself in prison as he interprets the dream for the king's cupbearer, the king's butler, thinks he's going to return a favor, maybe put in a good word for him, and then nope, that doesn't happen. He's forgotten about. And so there's disappointment after disappointment after disappointment that threatens to derail the dreams that God has put in Joseph's heart. And at the end of the book of Genesis, in Genesis chapter 50, verse 20, Joseph is reunited with his brothers, and he says this to them: "You intended it for evil, but God intended it for good and for the saving of many lives." Because this is what God does. God takes dreams that are potentially derailed by disappointment, and he redirects them for good, which is what he does through the cross of Christ, right? I mean, Jesus' death on the cross is devastating. That's not the plan. But then God works through that for good. He uses resurrection power to redirect dreams. And so Paul can say in Romans chapter 8, verse 28, "And God works together for the good of all who love him, who have been called according to his purposes." It might not be your plan, but God works through that and in spite of that for his good plans. You know, right now, some of you are struggling with disappointment. Life hasn't played out the way that you wanted it to. And you've lost relationships, and you've lost a job, and you've lost your health. And maybe you haven't experienced that yet, but we all get there. In fact, this is a part of our daily lives. Sometimes it's little disappointments, sometimes it's big disappointments. And what I want to invite you to remember is that when disappointment threatens to derail your dreams, remember Jesus. Remember the one who works all things together for good. Remember the plans that he has for you. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you again next time.